WebViews then are just a way of showing a website in your app. So they're pretty straightforward, but they're very powerful, especially if you've got an app that integrates with a website and you want the user to view a bit of that website without leaving your app. That's what we're going to be using in our Hacker News app to display the actual news items. And so in this video, I'll show you how to use a WebView and load a URL in it. So we'll call this WebView demo. All the usual settings, and finish there. And here we are. So let's just get rid of our hello world. And then we'll just drag in our web view from the widgets list there. And I'm going to make it full screen. There it is. Lovely. And then it's got an ID of WebView, so we can access that nice and simply. So how do we put a website into that WebView? It's very straightforward indeed. We just need a couple of lines. Firstly, some code to access the WebView. So you won't be surprised to hear we use WebView to create a WebView. This has a type of WebView. And then we're going to find view by ID using resources.id.webview. There it is. And then there's one setting that I think is worth always setting, and that is to change the settings and set JavaScript to be enabled. And set that to be true. It's not always true by default, and so many websites use JavaScript these days that without that, you're probably not going to get a correct displaying of the website. Just have a very quick look at all the other settings that you can set. There's a lot that you can do, so you can allow file access, enabling databases, etc., etc. So you can do a lot of stuff within a web view. And in fact, there are whole apps that are built just in a single web view. And if you're a web developer, you might want to look into building apps that way. Generally, they're not quite as responsive or as smooth as native apps, but they are getting better all the time, and definitely something to look into if you're looking to make an app that you want to work on multiple platforms, say iOS and Android. But anyway, to load a URL, it's nice and easy. Whoops, we don't want to load data. We want to load a URL. And then just enter the URL, and that's it. So notice we just put a string in here, not a URL, which might be surprising, but that's how it works. And of course, we'll need to request the internet permission . There it is, to be able to load the content. And that's it. Simple as that. So now we should have a nice big web view below the menu bar there, which will start off with the contents of google.com in it. Here we go. Now, that's strange behavior. I just wanted you to see that there, that if you just do the obvious thing and load the URL, that actually loads the URL and redirects to the default browser, Chrome. Now, to avoid that behavior, which you won't see on a number of the online tutorials, which is why I just wanted to make clear what happens if you don't do this line, then what we can do is set a WebView client and then create a new WebView client. So this essentially just creates a full mini browser within your WebView, which will stop it redirecting to Chrome. And so I definitely recommend doing that before you try and load the URL. And now let's take a look. There we go. So now we've got Google in our web view in our app, which is what we want, and we can interact with that in the usual way, and everything should work fine. There we go. We can scroll and everything. Brilliant. So that's how you load a URL. We did see very briefly that we can also load data. So if you've got some HTML that you've downloaded from somewhere or created from within your app, you can load that in your web view instead using load data. And all you need is a string of data. So I'm just going to write a little bit of HTML here. Don't worry too much about this if you haven't used HTML before. This just means that we've got some HTML. This is the body of our HTML. I'm then going to put a big header in there saying hi there. Then I'm going to close the header tag. Then I'm going to have a paragraph tag saying this is my website. Then I'm going to close the paragraph tag. Then I'm going to close the body tag. And then I'm going to close the HTML tag. There we go. So that's the HTML content of my page. Then we also have to specify the type of the content. The standard type is just text/HTML. And finally, we have to specify the encoding. And again, we'll just use the standard encoding, which is UTF-8. Then let's have a quick look at that. We should find that we get our own HTML loaded in that page. Here we go. Fantastic. So there it is. So that's how you load a web view and either load some content from the web or load your own data. That's going to be extremely useful in our next and final app for this section, the Hacker News app.